So, what if I told you the future isn't about flying cars or wild alien invasions? What if it's actually a slow, kind of logical journey that ends with humanity becoming pure information? Well, today, we're going to trace that exact path. We're looking at a million-year timeline that starts right where we are now. Let's dive in and see how we get from here to there.
Okay, I want you to imagine this for a second. The year is over 1 million, and you're a member of something called the Sol Lineage. Now, this isn't some far-off story you're reading about. This is your reality.
You don't live on a planet. You don't breathe air. Your body, if you even choose to have one, is synthetic. You exist as a pattern, just a stream of information flowing through this massive structure built around a star. And biology? That's not your reality. It's just a history lesson.
Right. So how on earth did humanity go from being flesh and blood on one little blue planet to pure information living inside a star-spanning machine? That's the journey we're going on today. We're going to trace the steps from our time to yours. To really understand the future that actually happened, we first need to take a look at all the futures that didn't. All those dramatic, apocalyptic, sci-fi predictions. Turns out almost every single one of them got it wrong. And the reason why they were wrong, well, that's the key to everything. That great nuclear apocalypse we were all terrified of? Yeah, it never came. But not because of some sudden burst of morality or world peace. Nope. It was because of cold, hard logic. Mutually assured destruction meant a full-scale war was just strategic suicide. It didn't guarantee victory. It guaranteed that everybody lost. So the bombs just stayed where they were. A deterrent, not a weapon.
And that cool cyberpunk future with the chrome arms and brain implants, that never really became mainstream either. As it turns out, most people just weren't willing to go through permanent, super expensive, and medically risky surgery for tech that was going to be obsolete in a couple of years anyway. It was just way too impractical. We also never formed a single, unified world government. I mean, if you look at history, there's a really clear pattern that just never seems to break. Tribes become city-states, they become nations, which then form regional blocks, which eventually fragment. Big consolidation was always temporary. The natural flow was always towards smaller, cooperative systems, not one giant empire. And this all points to the real force that shaped our future. It wasn't some grand ideological battle or a dramatic catastrophe. It was something way more mundane. Economics. Clean energy didn't win because it saved the planet. It won because it got cheaper. At the end of the day, practicality, not morality, was the real engine of change. So this brings us to the technological singularity. But forget what you've seen in the movies. This wasn't a sudden explosion where a rogue AI takes over the world. It was a quiet, gradual transition that completely remade the human experience, really from the inside out. And this wasn't some radical break from the past either. Humans have always outsourced our mental tasks. Rating outsourced our memory. Money outsourced our trust in transactions. Computers, they outsourced complex calculation. AI was just the final logical step. We outsourced cognition itself. And this slow, steady integration, that was the real singularity. It was never an us versus them kind of thing. Instead, starting around the 21st century, AI just became so fundamental to how our world worked that we stopped using it as a tool and we started living inside of it. This is the perfect metaphor for what happened. Humanity provided that initial spark, the core idea, the seed. But AI and automated systems, they became the branches, doing all the dangerous, large-scale work of expanding civilization into really hostile environments, like space, where our fragile biology was just too expensive to maintain. Which brings us to our next major shift, the Great Divergence. This new AI-driven environment led to something that I don't think anyone really expected, the fracturing of the human species itself. Think about it. Political conflict has always been about incompatible groups being forced to share the same space and the same resources. But what happens when technology allows people to just create their own custom environments, physical, virtual, whatever? Well, they no longer need to fight over the same set of rules. Politics just kind of dissolved. So humanity split. People started sorting themselves not by nationality, but by temperament. You had the super integrated citizens of these AI-managed megacities. You had the rugged, independent colonists on Mars and in asteroid habitats. You had digital-first societies living almost entirely in virtual realities. And yeah, you had traditional enclaves that just maintained the older ways of life.
And the outcome of this was just profound. Humanity was no longer a single, unified concept. These groups didn't share values, they didn't share pressures, they didn't even share a basic definition of what a good life was. They became parallel humanities, coexisting on completely different evolutionary tracks. And then, over the deep time of millennia, these cultural and environmental differences just hardened. A kid raised on Mars simply did not think or develop like a kid raised in a virtual world. And biology does what it always does. It follows the environment. So these parallel humanities began to diverge into what were basically distinct subspecies. And this, right here, brings our story full circle. Back to you. Because one of those divergent paths, the one that was born from those digital-first societies, led directly to the Sol Lineage.
For those people living mostly in digital spaces, the biological body just became a liability. It was fragile, it was inefficient, it was so costly to maintain. So they took the final logical step. They abandoned physical embodiment altogether, becoming pure cognitive patterns within that vast AI infrastructure.
I mean, this comparison really shows you the sheer scale of the transformation. Our ancestral humanity was biological, lived on a planet, and was motivated by survival. The Sol Lineage is digital, lives in a Dyson swarm, and is motivated purely by understanding. Every single pillar of what it means to exist has been replaced. By this point, biology isn't the unifier anymore. Genetics, culture, environment, it's all completely diverged. The only thread, the only thing connecting all these different forms of post-humanity is a shared history, a digital archive of memory that reaches all the way back to a time when everyone was part of a single species on Earth. Which, of course, leaves us with a final and pretty profound question. If the thing that once defined us, our biology, our planet, our shared struggles for survival, if all of that now only exists as a historical record, then what have we truly become?